Hey everybody, Big J, Anderson Mountain E Farms. Glad to see you all again today. Got a little on the camera and say hey.
Hi.
Okay, TB here with you.
Hi.
Now, today we're going to talk about fractions, right? This is part 2 of a 5-part series on the Big 5. You got to conquer fractions, okay? You got to conquer fractions. We're going to take some time. We're going to look at that. TB, give us an example of when you use fractions.
Well, I tend to use fractions a lot in baking because you use teaspoons, tablespoons, pints, quarts, cups, whole shebang in baking.
Okay. And specifically, what do these say on the side of this?
And you have ounces as well, and fractions in measuring for baking.
Right.
3/4, 1 2/3, 1/2, 1/3, 1/4.
Right. So you see all of these too, right? And what do you notice about 1/4 and 1/3? What's kind of different about them? Besides, I mean, one is more volume, but what else is different?
They have uncommon denominators.
Right. That's what's scary. Least common denominators. Adding, subtracting, least common denominators. So if I told you 3/8 plus 1/16, what is that?
That is 7/16.
Right, 7/16. So she could just spit that out, right? Because she's done it so much. Thanks, TB. Dad practiced it so much. That's my plug again for raised arithmetic. That 19th century problem solving, fractions, very heavy fraction based. What's unique about fractions and why we use them so much, even though we do use the decimal system also, which is invaluable, the base 10 decimal system, but fractions, because believe it or not, we think in terms of fractions. If I say 0.5, you don't immediately think about what that looks like. You convert it to 1/2. Again, if I say 0.5 pizza, without knowing it, you quickly do that into half a pizza. We visualize things in fractions. Now, I think it's really convoluted, 7/465, that gets kind of really crazy on us. But a lot of computations, we tend to break things down. We think in terms of fractions. And so we may oftentimes convert it back from decimal fraction, percentages, back and forth, but we do think in fractions, and it's so invaluable. But what I want to look at today is how we can begin to conquer this least common denominator business. Okay, so I'm going to get Lil to zoom in right here. This is a chart that I have made up. So Lil, if you want to zoom in here for me, it's common fractions, and when it comes like the standard, like the tape measure, you got this tape measure here, right? Tape measure that you'll see here. It's broken down, the small dashes all the way down to 16ths. Some of it, a lot of these may be in 8ths. Some of them may actually put the numbers 1/4 or maybe 1/8, and the dashes, you just have to know what they are, right? So let's zoom back in on this right here. The common tape measures, you're looking at base 8 and 16. You can really put base 2 and 4, and they're also 1/2, 1/4, that kind of thing. But base 8 and base 16. And what I mean by that is base 8 like 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, and so on. Or 16ths, meaning it's base 16, or there's 1 inch is 16 slices, right? It's broken down into 16ths. And so those are the ones that you really want to master. So these least common denominators, it's just good to just memorize them, what they are. So when you have an example like we had earlier, 3/8 plus 1/16, what she's actually doing is she's converting 3/8 to base 16, right? Because I got to remember like 16, so which you cannot simplify that down. So 16 is my greatest, and then the 8, I'm going to end up doubling it, right? So I'm going to end up with 6/16 plus 1/16, and I'm going to get 7/16, right? But you just learn to memorize those. And that chart, if you want to go back, put it on pause, do a screenshot, great to memorize. So 1/8, of course, stands at 1/8, 1/4 is 2/8, and then you have 3/8, 4/8 is a half, and so on. And then when you move to the base 16, 1/16, 2/16, 3/16, and know what those are. And you'll get pretty good at it, especially as you learn to just practice with a tape measure. Use real life examples, go measure stuff, go build a project, go put together a bookshelf. Find something that you can measure and use, and you'll get good at it. You'll get fast at it. Cloth, tapestries, blankets, clothes. If it's something a lot larger, it could be a garden, something that you're going to roll out in feet, right, or yards. So you want to really use that, memorize the base 8, base 16. So when you have a figure like, we've got 7/16, plus, we'll say 1/2, all right? Let me use a different marker here. We've got 7/16 plus 1/2, right? Immediately, what you should come to mind is 7/16. Instead of having to go, factor tree, all that stuff, what's this? Some of this it's really worth just memorizing it, all right? Not asking you to memorize all the way up to the 64ths or 256 or whatever, but at least up to base 16, right? So 7/16, this ends up being what 1/2 is 8/16, and so you end up with 15/16, and that doesn't reduce down. So you have something like that, right? And initially what I want you to work on is, before you get into a lot of the larger mixed numbers, you can always obviously simplify this one if it ends up being an improper fraction, but really just work on those. That was the sheet that I put on there. I may try to upload that later on the website. But specifically, base 8, base 16, and it goes, simpler ones are base 2 and 4, and be able to go back and forth through those, back and forth, back and forth. And one good way to also practice is, and again, with measuring, I want you to take real stuff. You can take, say like this wrench, this is an 11/16, this is 1/2, although if you want to zoom in on that for me, 11/16, make sure I put it right here, 11/16 and 1/2 right here. Is get used to, what does it look like? Visually think about this, right? 1/2, 11/16, 3/8, whatever it is, and use these tools. You can have different size wrenches, or nuts, bolts, and washers, and lay them out. Look at them. Different lengths of pieces of wood, thickness of pieces of wood, different gauges of wire, or whatever it is, right? Whatever the unit is, to really go through that. Of course, here you've got, this is technically in the dashes are in 8s, but know that a longer dash is quarter, for example. Just get familiar with your tools. So much of life is that. I think one thing that's great is develop some kind of trade skill set. Even if you do something much more intense analytically, but really develop a good trade whenever you're young, in your teenage years, in your early 20s. That will help build that analytical mind if you're going to do something much more complex like rocketry or some other type of civil engineering or whatever it is, right? So base 8, base 16 is to just really practice those, really work on those. The next one that's important, and that's base 6. You got base 10 and you got base 12. Base 6, you're looking at 6 thirds, 1/6, 1/3, 1/2. All of those go up to 1/6, 2/6, 3/6, 4/6, 5/6. Another major one to really know is base 10. A lot of rain gauges. This particular rain gauge right here is actually base 8. But a lot of them are base 10. All the ones that I grew up with were base 10, and it was intense. And so it rained 2/10 yesterday, it rained a 1/2 inch yesterday. What do we got? We got 7/10. And so so that base 10, the 2, 5, and 10, and just memorize those. And a lot of this, some of these are kind of intuitive, but you learn, you practice, you get used to it. Again, that mental arithmetic that you just start to kind of work all the time, you get good at. This other one, of course, is base 12. Just want to throw this up here, base 12. Again, the ones I just mentioned are specifically a lot of standard volume and weights. The base 6, 10, and 12, I'm also including base 2 and 3 in those. 6, 10, and 12. Some of these you could probably also throw in a base 4 with these, especially the one up at the top. But base 12, some things are in a unit of 12, and that'll take care of least common denominators like 3, 4, 6, and up to 12, right? So those are some other ones you can always build when you got sevenths or ninths or whatever, but really conquer those because they're used so much in the world. So much consumer math is based on that. Even when you have a lot of, metric, a lot of that's still going to come out in like a half a liter. Well, half a liter, 500 milliliters, right? But you're still using the term half, 3/4 of a liter, something like this. You're still going to run into these fractions. They're not going to just go away because you start using decimal or you start using metric, okay? But really be able to convert that, be able to conceptualize all of these things, and really kind of go through that. So you're going to think in terms of like half a cup of flour, 1/3 cup of olive oil, 3/4 pound of pecans, 3/10 of an inch of rain, a 5/8 inch ranch. And so again, if you memorize these least common denominators, they will make your life much simpler, especially because a lot of times you can reduce a lot of larger numbers down to these. Not always, but a lot of times you can bring them down to these, and then if you can reduce it, well, then you can do the rest in your head, and you can speed the process up. But that's what I really wanted to hit on today with these fractions, is really master base 8, base 16, and included that's going to be base 2 and 4, base 6, which is also going to include 2 and 3, base 10, which is pretty much just 2, 5, and 10, and then base 12, 3, 4, 6, and 12. And you can continue to go up higher than that, but really master those. Take some time, work through a lot of problems. I'm going to try to come up with a whole lot of worksheets down the road that just kind of again and again working through these. Repetition is, of course, the key to this. You may have to sacrifice some stuff so you can put in a lot of time into these fractions. Down the road, I want to do a much broader series on fractions and how to work through that stuff and how to really get more potential in conquering that. Because everything that we've talked about so far, the problem solving and the fractions, is really going to set the stage for what we're going to cover in the next episode in dealing with the big 5, right? Fractions, problem solving. The next one in the big 5 is graphing. So we got some great examples when we get to graphing, but you got to be able to do fractions, decimals, that kind of thing, or kind of convert back and forth, because on a graph you're not just going to work with integers, you're going to have to work with fractions. You need to be able to visualize that and how to work through that. So in the next episode, we're going to get into the graphing. Going to talk about pie graphs or circle graphs, and then sometimes those are used interchangeably. Technically, there's a little subtle difference, but we just call it the pie graph. That's what people generally visualize. We're going to get into that, and we're going to get into more of the first quadrant of the graph. Now, if you like help, love to help you out, to help you kind of work through this material, anything like that. If you get stumped with something, be glad to be there to assist. Check us out, AndersonMountainViewFarms.com. Got my other information there. Like us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we'll see you next time.